Well, it seems the changes I made were not sufficient. And I guess I should have mentioned the red ants. Unbelievable. I don't understand why. Stream quality is good. Barely using any of my processor. Yep. I don't understand why that's happening. Interesting. Just me at the time. Oh, that's very frustrating. I don't understand it. Talking to myself. Hopefully people will be able to make it back. Don't know if they have. Yep. Crazy. Anyway, we got folks back yet? Let's see what's happening. All right. No, it's just me after 1 minute. Oh my goodness. Very frustrating. Minute 34, still nobody back. Yep, minute and a half, nobody back. Am I actually streaming live is the question. I have to go back and see that. It tells me I am, but who knows? Who knows? It says I'm streaming live. Yep, don't know what's going on there. Huh. Feature cat. Penny Dreadful canceled based in Victoria. Yeah, Penny Dreadful. That was a brilliant show. Rebooted in LA, not a comedy with a super. That's interesting. I didn't know that happened. Interesting. Okay. So is anybody back yet? Anybody there? Oh, War Maverick's there. Hey, glad to see you. Yeah, I don't know if you were on the stream before, but it dropped off again. I've made some adjustments to my network card and changed a few other things and made sure they have a solid stream, and it's not that. I'm checking in my Streamlabs OBS, and it says that I'm not having any problems, so I don't understand why this thing is dropping off. But let me give you a second, see if anybody else joins us here. It's just the two of us at the moment. So we are back. All right, that's good to see. Let me make sure that I've turned off that so I'm not streaming and eating up space. There we go. So that shouldn't be the problem. All right. So anyway, just you and I at the moment. I was talking about Longmire. You can see it on the screen there. One of my favorite programs. This was a program that was on the A&E network and had been canceled after 3 seasons, despite being the top-rated program on the show, the highest-rated ever debut, and after 3 years still had a very strong audience. They canceled the show. Netflix decided to pick it up, and when they decided to pick, hey Nicholas, welcome back. Hopefully you've taken care of the cat, and and you're back with me. So I did have to say the unfortunate little crawlers, and I guess maybe they found out. I don't know what's going on with this stream, but I'm going to have to switch to a different device. I have a different laptop, and last night I was testing it, and it wasn't playing nice, so I'm not so sure what the deal is. May have to switch to the PC. But anyway, so Longmire was canceled and picked up by Netflix, and Netflix carried it for 3 more seasons, which was great. As a Netflix fan, I was really happy to see, or not as a Netflix fan, as a Longmire fan, I was very happy to see that Netflix picked it up. And they actually wrapped it up so that it got 6 seasons, and by the end of the 6th season, actually, I was okay with the program going away. But this is not a show that disappeared before its time. It did disappear before its time, but then it came back. And this is because the fans were high behind it, and also because Netflix was looking for new content. And this was a really quality show. So Longmire. So for those aren't familiar with it, it was a fantastic show. It really is. It's on Netflix, although I understand different parts of the world you don't get everything the same. Like in the UK, they get The Big Bang Theory on Netflix, but I don't get that here because CBS owns it and they won't license it because they have their own network. So let me take Longmire off there, and now we're going to talk about another program that got a little bit of time, but I don't think got its fair share. And the reason I say it didn't get its fair share is I'm making the comparison to the rest of the Star Trek series. With the exception of the original program, which only ran for 3 seasons back in the 1960s, once we came back with additional Star Trek series like Star Trek Deep or Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, all of those programs got 6, 7, 8 or more years to be on the air. Well, they came up with a program that was better than Voyager by a wide margin, and even better than Deep Space Nine, and that was Star Trek Enterprise, starring Scott Bakula, who's played a number of television shows. He's doing an NCIS New Orleans here in the States right now, and they did his time travel show back in the 1980s and 90s. But Scott Bakula is a fantastic actor, and Star Trek Enterprise was a brilliant show. I really, really enjoyed it. It was just on for 3 or 4 seasons, and so the little special packaging they come in with all the DVDs. Anyway, so the show was on for, like I say, like 3 or 4 seasons, and it was fantastic, really good. This took it back to the time that humans first got warp drive after Zefram Cochrane. I'm sorry for those who aren't Star Trek geeks. My apologies, but it takes it back. Yeah, Quantum Leap. That's the show I was looking for, Nicholas. Yeah, he was the star of Quantum Leap, which was an amazing show many years ago. So Star Trek Enterprise goes back to the time right after Zefram Cochrane, not right after, but after he's invented warp drive, and the Vulcans come to Earth, which you see in one of the movies famously depicted. And what happens is that this is the beginning of space travel in the original Enterprise version, and the first captain, Jonathan Archer, who is the commander of this ship. It's fantastic. It's got time travel. Anyway, it made it for about 4 seasons. The show was canceled, and the fans raised, I forget the amount of money. It was like $3 million, and one wealthy person gave another $1 million. We were offering to pay for production costs, but Paramount refused to produce the show and go any further. They said it was time for a break, only to take a break for a very long period of time, over a decade, and then come on now with a new Star Trek program, which is only available on the CBS network by streaming, which of course you have to pay for. And quite frankly, it's beyond politically correct. It's a shame. There's no reason to make Star Trek politically correct. It was politically correct before politically correct was popular. Back in the 1960s, interracial kissing, unusual relationships, leadership dilemmas, things like that. It was already challenging societal norms in the 1960s and always has been, and challenging our perceptions of life. But nonetheless, they wanted to play games with these new Star Trek series. So I've only watched part of the one season, and now they've got Picard. But I'm not going to pay CBS for their content because most of their content I'm not interested in. Yes, Warren Maverick. Yeah, he stars in NCIS New Orleans now. Yep, that's correct. Absolutely, that's where he's at. So looks like we didn't get everybody back. That's unfortunate. Hopefully people will come back, but we've lost some folks. So now let me talk about another show that I think went before its time, and I think this might have had something to do. It might have been ratings, I don't know, but I think it had something to do with the actor himself, the actor James Woods, who's well known for his film roles and also television roles. But now he's probably best known in the States as being active with his mouth, with his voice, as a political conservative and speaking out against, during the Obama administration, against what he felt was wrong. And I think he's a fan of Trump now. So he's been active on Twitter and repeatedly blocked by Twitter, shadow banned by others. And but anyway, James Woods, fantastic. And this is the show Shark. Hey, Dabble, really enjoyed this show. Um, it was great. It was only on for a short period of time, just the one season there, 22 episodes, got a full season. He plays a former defense attorney who's a shark, and his name is similar to that. And what happens is that he used to get off high-profile criminals because he was a very good defense attorney. So the mayor convinces him, as a friend of his, to come in and be the district attorney, and he becomes the district attorney, and he starts prosecuting these cases. And he has a young team of all these lawyers, and he uses some underhanded tricks because he's a high-powered defense lawyer, and it's really, really good. It also includes Jeri Ryan, who was, you see her in the center there. Jeri Ryan was, of course, famously on Star Trek Voyager. She played Seven of Nine, the Borg human, who was the character was on that show. And she's also less famously known as the ex-wife of the former Jack Ryan, not the Tom Clancy character Jack Ryan, but the actual Jack Ryan, the politician who was running for the Senate seat in Illinois. And just before the election, during the campaign season, people stole somehow or paid someone off to get the records from a sealed divorce settlement between Jeri Ryan, the actress, and her ex-husband, in which she claimed that he forced her to go to sex clubs and had a bizarre sex life. And so she used that to get custody of their child and their divorce. So that was all sprayed all over the newspapers, and an obscure, unknown state senator who had lost his first election campaign came back and got elected to the Illinois legislature, and then ran for the U.S. Senate. And he ran against Alan Keyes, who replaced Jack Ryan at the last minute, and not even a resident of the state of Illinois, just a kind of a carpetbagger, went from D.C. over to Illinois. And so Alan Keyes lost the election, a black candidate to another black candidate, and that was, of course, Barack Hussein Obama, who got elected to the U.S. Senate, and before he even arrived in Washington, began his campaign for president, and 2 years later started running for president. So Jeri Ryan is in this, and yes, she's in Picard as well. Well, maybe I'll have to break down the cash and watch the CBS network, because I do like Jeri Ryan, although I don't like her divorce and the fact that we lost that seat in Illinois as a consequence of dirty political tricks that were played, not by her necessarily. So James Woods, yeah, he has a very high IQ. He's a brilliant guy. The guy's an amazing actor. He's got a great delivery. So Shark, great show. I recommend it. Now I'm going to talk about some more that are a little more obscure and maybe not as well known. Let's see if I have the picture here. I don't have the picture. All right, so I'll just leave James Woods up there and Shark for now. And this was Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey was, is it the DC universe? Yeah, it's Batman's, these are relatives of Batman, and they're all female cast. This was a really good show. I truly enjoyed it. So the back of the cover says, when New Gotham needed a hero, 3 stepped forward. Who will stand up to the villains now that a heartbroken Dark Knight has mysteriously vanished? Batman disappears from the city. Never fear, New Gothamites. A trio of champions is ready to take wing, and Helena, the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, is among them. She calls herself the Huntress, and crime is her prey. Teenage Dinah is the youngest of the group, learning as she goes and gifted in clairvoyance. And overseeing the awesome threesomes high-tech nerve center is Batgirl. Yep. So left wheelchair-bound by the Joker, Batgirl has reinvented herself as, is it Oracle? She's Oracle, that's right. The team's cyber expert, Huntress, Dinah, Oracle, they're all birds of prey, fighting together, living together, and soaring into adventure together. 13 breathtaking live-action episodes. This was a really good show. I really, really enjoyed this. I don't know why it went away. More Maverick says, haven't you seen Bull with Michael Weatherly? Yeah, Bull is fantastic. I watch every episode of Bull. I've got 3 on my DVR now that I'm trying to get back to watching. But Birds of Prey was a really good program. There's the character of Alfred is in there, of course, but really good stuff. I don't know why it just must not have drawn the crowd that they were looking for. And also, what's his name? So if you are a fan of what's the FBI show in which the team does they search for the serial killers and such. But in that show, one of the top actors and one of the fans really loved was Shemar Moore. Well, Shemar Moore is in this program. So there's a very young Shemar Moore here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'll point him out right there. Let me see if you can see that. So just next to my finger, there's Shemar Moore. Yeah, very young. This is early in his career. Yep, really good stuff. So Birds of Prey. It's unfortunate that it didn't make it. I don't recall what the reason was, but I have the thing on DVD, the entire series, and I've watched it repeatedly. It was well done for its time. Now, here's another one that that was very interesting. Criminal Minds. Yeah, Criminal Minds. That's right. The show with Shemar Moore. Thanks, War Maverick. And so Shemar Moore, if you like Shemar Moore as an actor, and I really do, he's really talented. You want to see him early days, watch Birds of Prey, because you'll find him in there. He plays a cop. Big surprise. He plays a cop. All right, so this show was kind of an apocalyptic aftermath after the world blows up and what's happening. This was very interesting. It starred Luke Perry and Malcolm Jamal Warner. You may remember Malcolm Jamal Warner from The Cosby Show. He was the son on there, who later we discovered had dyslexia. But it's called Jeremiah. This is a post-apocalyptic world in which people are trying to survive. And so Jeremiah was the show. This was really good, really well done. It was on a low budget. I think it was one of the early days when they started recording shows, television shows up in the Vancouver area. And this was really, really interesting. So I have the entire program. You got 14 hours and 47 minutes with all the episodes. And you might notice, there's a face there you might notice too. Beverly Hills 90210, he appeared on the show. Yep, that's right. That would be the gentleman who had the traffic accident. Yep, good stuff. Malcolm Jamal Warner. Yep. And Luke Perry. Of course, Luke Perry sadly has passed away now. Last year, I think it was. But Jeremiah was a really good program. There's a lot of programs like this out there that have been made over the last 2 decades, but Jeremiah was one of the first post-apocalyptic, environments. and I think it was pretty good. So now I'm going to shift base a little bit here. Give me a second. I'm going to reach down and grab some of these. No Starbucks tonight. I don't want to spill the Starbucks on my nice furniture. So I'm drinking some tea tonight, Pure Leaf. And oh, I've got company. In case anybody missed it, I have the Easter Bunny, and I got a bear to keep me company there. All right. Okay. So here we go. This show was unusual. It's a British production starring an American actress. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know about it. I bought it on a lark, I think from Amazon, just to check it out when I was overseas. It seemed strange, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And it stars Chloe Sevigny, who was also in that show Big about a Mormon family and polygamy. She was in that. That's where I first ever saw her, Chloe Sevigny. She stars in this program, and it's about a hitman, except the hitman is becoming a hit woman, and it's called Hit and Miss. Really great program, fantastic acting, good storylines. She plays a hitman who is a transsexual and is in the process of becoming a woman, lives as a woman, but of course still has the tackle of a man, and is trying to save up and killing people and getting paid off for assassinating people and knocking people off for the mob, saving the money for the male to female sex operation, sex change. So, but the story is fantastic. The acting is absolutely amazing. And she has a pretty darn good accent in this. It's really, really fascinating stuff. I think it takes place in the Midlands in England. So really good stuff. Yep. Yep. Malcolm Jamal Warner played Theo in The Cosby Show. Yeah, definitely rolling back the years. And Luke Perry did pass away. Yep. Yeah. So Hit and Miss. This is a really good show with Chloe Sevigny. And it only went for the one season. It kind of ended on a cliffhanger, which is unfortunate. I don't think it'll ever come back. British shows are like that. They'll tease you and have 4, 5, 6 episodes if you're lucky, and then they're just gone. And you never see them again. There was a show about 20 years ago that I really liked in the UK called The Vice, and it was only on for a couple seasons and just disappeared. Never saw it again. Now here's a show that if you're a fan, now we all have shows that we love and we're big fans of, and the shows they hang around. And these shows come and go, but the shows that last a long time, like if you're a Big Bang Theory fan, it lasted for a dozen years. Pretty good. If you're a MASH fan, it was on for a long time. Frasier, these shows last a long time. Gunsmoke, 20 plus years. So this show, if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you'll remember that Sheldon was a huge fan of Alphas. And Alphas was on, people had supernatural ability, capabilities. They could hear things, they could see things, they could sense things, superhuman strength. Really good cast. That's the gentleman who played in Sneakers. That was a movie back in the center there, that back in the 1980s, starring Robert Redford, which they played former CIA operatives, and they were chasing Ben Kingsley, who was in hiding. And it was, anyways, interesting stuff. So Alphas was a really good program. It was on for just 2 seasons. But if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you'll remember that The Big Bang Theory. Justin goes. If you watch The Big Bang Theory, you'll see that Sheldon was so angry that Alphas was canceled. He didn't know it was canceled, that he hunted down the writer or the producer of the show, looking in the telephone book, and was calling up all the people. And he finally reached the guy that was the one that was responsible for it. And he says, "I'm very angry. You've canceled the show and left it on a cliffhanger." And he goes, what was the end going to be? And the guy tells him, he goes, "Oh, well, good thing you canceled it." In other words, the ending wasn't going to be very good. But this was just on for 2 seasons. Alphas. It was a really good program. I really enjoyed it. You can find these things on DVD. Alphas. Supernatural sort of stuff. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and they're going to go back. Let me see what Justin Ghost has to say. Been watching the background. Weird thing about me is I can't watch movies. Just can't be bothered. But catching up for some trivia. Yeah, no. This is all television shows, no movies today, but I get your point. I can't be bothered to go sit in a theater. That can be very, with all the distractions and things going on in the theater, it can be something else. So now the one I want to show you now here, this is a really good program that was not a knockoff, but a spinoff of Babylon 5. If you're a Babylon 5 fan, this was really good. And it starred Gary Cole, who's a really good actor. I've always enjoyed him, and Tracy Scroggins was in it, as well as Daniel Day Kim. You'll see a young Daniel Day Kim there on the right-hand side. Daniel Day Kim was also in the Hawaii Five-0 reboot, and he's a really talented actor. Really always enjoyed him. So it's Crusade. It just had 1 season, and it didn't have a complete season. It was fantastic. And this took off in the Babylon 5 universe after a large conflict, and these folks are there's a war that's all the world's going to be wiped out by virus if we don't have a solution within 5 years, and so they're hunting for a solution for the virus. So in the midst of the Wuhan coronavirus or COVID-19, a virus, interesting. So Crusade was a space-based sci-fi show in which they're looking for a cure to a virus that's been dumped on mankind. So there you go, Crusade. Gary Cole, Daniel Day Kim, and a host of other folks. Tracy Scroggins is just on there briefly. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed this show. It was a lot of fun when it was on, but it went for such a short time. The good news is that with DVDs and Blu-ray, you can get a hold of these things, and you've got them for a long time. Well, now I'm going to shift gears to a couple programs, and you'll see that what I watch is quite eclectic. So I'm going to shift to a program that you may not have heard of. And this show, I never saw it on television. I remember it being advertised, but I didn't watch it because the actress is not someone that I really cared for. But then I later caught it on DVD and I bought the whole thing. And so this show is absolutely rip-roaring hilarious for an intelligent person who appreciates humor that's based off of tying things together and wordplay and such. This show was fantastic. And I've watched this, it's had like 13 episodes, 5 of which never aired on television. I think this is another program that Fox had. These networks like Fox just really don't get it. They drop shows that are really, really quality. So this is Stacked, starring Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson. So not a huge Pamela Anderson fan for a lot of reasons, but in this show, she's brilliant. She's spot on. She was also involved in producing the show. I think she did some of the writing as well, and it's really, really fantastic. The premise is that she's a groupie or a rock band sort of person, a partier, kind of slutty, and she wanders into a bookstore, and in the bookstore, she's looking to change her life. And anyway, so they need to hire someone to work in the bookstore, and the guy that runs it's kind of uptight, anal retentive. His brother works there as well. They're kind of geeks. Well, they are geeks. They're not kind of geeks. And she winds up getting the job there, and it has Christopher Lloyd in it. He plays a NASA physicist who hangs out in the bookstore, and it's so funny. The jokes are hilarious. The play on words. She comes to work when she first starts there, and she's underdressed, and of course she has large breasts, and so the owner is frustrated because he wants to hire someone else, a guy who's a literary person, and he says to her, "This isn't Hooters. This is his bookstore. It's called Stacked." And then of course he realizes Hooters Stacked. That sort of humor. Really funny, rip roaring stuff. I truly, truly enjoyed it. Yeah, so Stacked with Pamela Anderson. She sells books like you care. Yeah. So, and of course, it has a number of other. Carmen Electra shows up on the show as a guest, and some other ones. Who's the one? Jenny McCarthy shows up on there. It's just hilarious. It shows you bimbos, but in a different light, and it's really, really entertaining stuff. So let me read this. The jacket cover from Stacked. So 14 original episodes. You can't judge a bookstore by its cover girl, especially when she happens to be Pamela Anderson. Anderson stars as drop-dead sexy Skylar Dayton. Now, how's that for a name, Skylar Dayton? Are we still on? Okay, we're still on. Skylar Dayton. Where was I? A reformed party girl in need of a lifestyle makeover who takes a job at a family-run bookstore called Stacked Books. Determined to prove she has ample talent beyond her ample talents, Skylar dazzles the employees and customers with her sweet-natured charm and refreshing honesty. This hip, hilarious comedy also features guest appearances by super hotties Jenny McCarty and Carmen Electra, and includes 5 unaired episodes that can finally be revealed. You'll bust out laughing. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, you will bust out laughing. This is a hilarious program. And I don't know why it didn't make it. I would presume it must have been on at a time and people weren't aware of it, or people like me who are not fans of Pamela Anderson just kind of dismissed it out of hand. Or I might have been overseas when this show came on. I really don't remember. But it's like 15 years ago that this show was on, and it's just so funny. Unbelievable. Each episode starts, and there's like a little screen, and you look as if you're reading a book, and it gives the lead in, and you read it really quickly about what's happening. It's really well done. I truly enjoyed it. So I'm not a Pamela Anderson fan, but I will recommend her to the ends of the earth on this show, Stacked. Stacked was just unbelievable. What an amazing show. It shows you how entertainment really can surprise you and really can add quality to your life and bring some interesting things into it. Okay, well, now I'm going to shift to my all-time favorite program that was canceled by network executives who need lobotomies. And once again, that is the Fox network. I did not watch the show when it was on, and I feel bad about that because I was one of the people who didn't contribute to it. But that was because at the time I was doing um, a master's program by distance education, and so I wasn't watching much television. I was working on a master's program by distance education, my second master's program. And so while this aired, it was only on for a few weeks. They aired it during the Baseball World Series. And so the schedule was screwed up. Instead of showing the first episode, which would have set the stage for fans, they showed the third episode. Then they went back and showed the first and second episode out of order. And they didn't show it one week, then they showed it the next week, didn't show it another week because of the baseball playoffs and World Series on Fox. And then before it got through its 13 episode run, they just canceled the program. Now, I've always suspected the only reason the show ever got on the air is because the network was paying it back to Josh Whedon, because Josh Whedon had been the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which made lots of money for that network, tons of money. I wouldn't be surprised if that show made them $1 billion by the time it was all over, if not more. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer was hugely popular with Sarah Michelle Gellar, David Bonerantz, and others. And that show just made them tons and tons and tons of money. And so I always have suspected the only reason this show ever got on the air is because they felt they owed Josh Whedon. And what program am I talking about? I'm talking about Firefly. That's right. Any Firefly fans out there, or any of you guys Firefly fans, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen the program? It is stunning. It's absolutely amazing. So it stars Nathan Fillion and a whole host of other people. These are the DVDs to give you an idea how much a fan I am, how much of a brown coat, if you know the show, I'm a brown coat, how much of a brown coat I am. Here is the DVD series, the complete series. Here is the Blu-ray, the complete series. And I also have Serenity, the movie, the complete series. And when the movie Serenity came out, I went to watch it 6 times. I don't go watch Star Wars 6 times. I watched this just to help get viewership up for the movie, hoping that it would break even so that it would come back as a television series. It has not come back. Firefly, brilliant, absolutely amazing concept for a sci-fi television show. Gene Roddenberry famously wanted Star Trek to be a wagon train to the stars. Wagon Train having been a very successful Western program here in the United States, and he wanted Star Trek to be the wagon train to the stars. He wanted it to be a Western set in space. I don't know that Star Trek has ever been a Western set in space, but Firefly is the Western set in space. This is the true wagon train to the stars. Firefly. Amazing show, fantastic ensemble, actors we'd never heard of who made it, got their start, like Summer Glau, absolutely amazing. Morena Baccarin, the Venezuelan American actress who was just stunning in this. Lots of other actors in here, including from Barney Miller, who sadly passed away now. Ron Glass, he played in this as well. He played a preacher, but a former intelligence operative, apparently. Anyway, yeah, Alan Tudyk is on this, Gina Rodriguez, lots of people, fantastic ensemble cast. So for those who are not familiar with the show, let me just tell you about one of my all-time favorite shows that didn't even survive a season. Shame on Fox, shame on them, shame, shame, shame. I'm hoping that it'll come back like set 20 years in the future with some of the characters that we love and come back as a program at some point here. Currently, Nathan Fillion is starring on a show called The Rookie, and so he's not going to be coming back anytime soon. But he would come back for this show. He loves this show. It really was what set him on his path. He had already been acting, but this one really did it. Anyway, so Firefly, here's the deal. So it's in the future, and humankind has left Earth because we've destroyed the planet. It's not safe to live here, so we take off and we go into space and we settle all over the place. And a lot of planets need to be terraformed because they don't quite meet the needs for the gravity or the environment, the oxygen, the content, and so on. So we do terraforming on these planets. And there's a big war between the center, the core part of the where humans live around the main core planets, and then the outer planets because they want their independence, as people who move away from authority tend to want to do. Look at the Boers in South Africa. They want to move away from authority, from the British. And so when people get, or here in America, moving westward, people get away from authority, they want to live more free and independent, and that's what happens. So there's a big war, and in this big war, this guy here, Malcolm Reynolds, is a sergeant, and we see the opening scene. There's a big battle. It's called the Battle of Serenity Valley, and they're called the Browncoats. The Browncoats. They lose the battle, and then so the evil empire triumphs. So it's set several years after this, and several years after that, one of his fellow soldiers, played by Gina Rodriguez, joins him, and they bought an old Firefly, an old transport ship, which is this. That's the Firefly, and it's called Firefly because the back engine, it lights up like when a Firefly lights up like that at night. So when it takes off in space. Anyway, so they buy this old transport ship and they're barely getting by, and they have a crew and they're adding people. And as the show goes, they give the backstories and how all the people become crew members. And it's fantastic. They carry sidearms, revolvers, and holsters just like in the Old West. And even though they have advanced weapons, they ride horseback on some planets, but they're flying on spaceships. And the world has changed and humankind has changed so that there are two lingua francas. There is Mandarin and there's English. And so what's fascinating about it is that everyone speaks some Mandarin, even if they're English speakers, and they tend to curse in Mandarin or say things in Mandarin, and it's actually Mandarin. It's fantastically well done. Josh Whedon was brilliant. It's one of the best television shows that was ever on TV, and it didn't even make a full season, not even half a season, before it was canceled. 9 episodes. There are 13 episodes total on the DVD and the Blu-ray. And this is a show you absolutely have to watch, and you have to give it the time of day. Truly amazing show. I absolutely loved it. Really, really did. And I've been a fan of many of the actors and followed them ever since. I had not seen Ron Glass since the 1970s and 80s with Barney Miller. I don't remember seeing him in anything, and then suddenly he's on Firefly. It was amazing. Really, really good stuff. And of course, there's always the evil empire still pursuing them, so they're always trying to escape from them. It's a fantastic show. I can't say enough good about it. Really, really good stuff. Anyway, so Firefly. Well, now let me mention some things you may have never seen. This show I absolutely loved. And this show was only on, I think, because the writer's strike took place. Now, there's a show on television now, a medical drama called New Amsterdam. Of course, New Amsterdam is New York City, for those unfamiliar with it. It's named after Amsterdam. The original name of New York is New Amsterdam. So when my ancestors settled there in the 17th century, early part of the 1600s. So New Amsterdam starred this guy, Nicola, I can't pronounce his last name, but he is in Game of Thrones. You probably know him from that. This is the first time I ever saw him. This is a show about a New York cop, and what happens is that he is a Dutch colonizer, a soldier, when the Dutch are settling Manhattan. And there's a fight with the Native Americans who were there, although they did purchase Manhattan from them. There was no actually a fight, but for drama, for the TV show, he's a Dutch soldier. We don't see this until after the shows start developing. He's a Dutch soldier, and I can't hold the DVD up because I can't get the DVD. I watched this, I think, on Amazon at some point. But anyway, so he's a Dutch soldier. He's out, and they're harassing a village, and they come across women and children, and the other Dutch soldiers are murdering the women and children. He intervenes to stop the Dutch soldiers. He says, "We don't kill women and children." And one of the other guys shoots him, and so he's going to die. And a shaman, a Native American shaman, a woman, because of his mercy, saves him, and she curses him. And she says, "You cannot die until you find the one." Ostensibly, that's his true love. Well, that happens in the 1600s. He's still alive in the 21st century. He becomes a bar owner. He becomes a thug. He becomes a businessman. He does everything through time. And when we get to this stage, he's a cop in New York City, a detective, and he never ages. So he can only work somewhere for a certain period of time, then he has to disappear. And of course, he has lots of resources because he's lived for hundreds of years, and he's moved around Manhattan and around New York. He knows all of the history of New York, everything about it, all the dirty secrets, and it helps him solve his crimes. And his partners are always puzzled by it. But the show is called New Amsterdam. A brilliant, brilliant, brilliant show. And it was only on for a short period of time, and it's really unfortunate that it never got a chance. I really enjoyed it. So early in the show, he's hanging out in this bar. High standards. Who's high standards, Nicholas? What do you mean? So he's hanging out in this bar. Oh, okay. Well, it was a good show. It was high standard. So he was hanging out in a bar with this older gentleman who's black, but he's clearly mixed race. You can tell he's got a white parent, probably, or a grandparent. And you don't understand why they're friends. You know, this guy is like in his 60s. This Dutch guy is 300 years old, but he looks like he's 25 or 30. And why are they friends? Well, you discover later on that in the 1920s, as a white man in New York, he fell in love with a black woman and got married. And this guy is his son. So he's been married and had offspring over the course of 300 years, but of course they all age and die. They all get older in appearance to him. And so, yeah, not being able to find a partner in 400 years. Yeah, well, not the one, Nicholas. He's found lots of partners. Clearly, the woman that was the mother of the old guy in the bar, that is his son, even though he looks in his 60s and he looks like he's 25, he was married and he did love her, but she wasn't the one. And so, in this show, he's invincible. He gets shot and he comes back to life, and so he has to hide that. He can't obviously, be seen coming back to life. So he just can't die. He's invincible. And so what happens is that he runs into a woman on the show who works in a hospital, and he gets wounded, and he nearly dies, and he's not invincible. So he thinks that she's the one. Finally, after all this time, she's the one because she makes him vulnerable. And so the series is kind of about that and about his partner trying to figure out how this guy knows all these things about where during Prohibition, these secret rooms and these bars and dance clubs, and how does he know this history? He's just a young cop. So it's a really fascinating show. It's called New Amsterdam. And then, of course, they stole the title with this medical drama, which irritates me, starring the guy that used to be on the blacklist, who played the husband of the FBI agent who was a bad guy. He's now in New Amsterdam. But this was the New Amsterdam that came first, and it was a medical show, or not a medical show, it was a crime drama, and it was really good. It's a shame that it didn't make it. So let me see what else I've got here to talk about shows like this, if I left any of it out. I mentioned Coupling. I talked about Birds of Prey, Shark, Hit and Miss, Jeremiah, Longmire, New Amsterdam, Stacked, Alphas, The Glades. Yep. I think that's most of the programs I want to talk about tonight. So again, I was hoping that this would go straight through and then I wouldn't be broken up on my stream. It looks like the second time I've gotten 36 minutes, but I still don't know why this thing is dropping off. The device is working, the connection works, I'm not losing internet, so I really don't know what it is, but I've got to solve this because eventually people are just going to be irritated and not come back and watch my stream, and I don't want that to happen because I think that we talk about interesting things. So let's see what else. Are there any shows that any of you have watched that you found interesting that just didn't survive? Or just any old shows, television shows, they can be from the US, Australia, UK, wherever, South Africa, a show that you really enjoyed that is not there anymore and you really wish was around, or a show that came on and it didn't get a fair chance and it was just canceled. The network executives really aren't patient with most shows. It's strange how some shows they'll be patient with, but others they simply aren't, and they cancel them long before their time is up. New Amsterdam never really got a shot. Firefly didn't get a fair chance, and it's unfortunate. But the studio did eventually give them the green light to make the film. They made the film, and between its U.S. and foreign box office, it it made just a little bit of money. If it had been a big success, they would have given another opportunity, probably for a television series or another movie, but it never happened. I suspect, though, that Josh Whedon is still influential in Hollywood, and that Nathan Fillion is a bankable star. What with between the shows he's done, for instance, Rookie is huge right now, and before that he did Castle. He played Castle, who was a novelist, a crime novelist who hung around with the cops. He he's a bankable kind of guy. And so Nathan Fillion, I think alone between him and Josh Whedon could probably find a way to get a new version of Firefly back on the air. And that would be amazing to see the Browncoats come back. Now, not everybody can come back because unfortunately in the movie, not to spoil it for you, but two of the characters were killed, two of the beloved characters. So they won't be coming back. And then one of those characters, I will let it out of the bag, is also died in real life. And that was Ron Glass, but he was an elderly person. So the other folks were in their 20s or 30s, and so they'll be in their 40s or 50s here before too long. And they could do another version of this. And Firefly, if you have anywhere near the talent of the writers who were on it the first time, it'll be fantastic. It'll really be good. So I look forward. Hopefully, we get Firefly again. Some of these other shows, I mean, I'm fine with them being gone away, but I would love to see Alphas. I think is done for. We're not going to see Alphas again. Birds of Prey is done for. Stacked, the time has come and gone. That's the kind of show you catch in the moment because the people who they are, how they look, and how they behave at that time. I don't think you could replicate Stacked, but it was hilarious, truly hilarious at its time. Firefly could be redone though. Shark is not going to come back because Hollywood is boycotting James Woods because of his political views. So I don't think we're ever going to see that again. So Nicholas says experiences that some shows go on for far too long. Supernatural, X-Files, Walking Dead. I gotta agree with you, but I don't know if that's the case. I know that Supernatural's on for like 14 years. That's insane. I've tried to watch Supernatural, and I've started the first season like 4 times, and I've gotten through it, and then eventually I lose interest. But it stayed on for a long time. I suspect it probably stayed past its sell-by date. The X Files, absolutely. The X Files was unbelievable when it started. Um, Unbelievable, and it really, really did go on too long. They strung out what was going on for far too long. And so, yeah, I think the X Files went past its dead. I think somebody said something on not Pushing Daisies. What was the other show? I think we got cut off. Someone was talking about one of those shows like Pushing Daisies. Um, Anyway, Pushing Daisies is one of those shows too. Um, The Walking Dead. I love The Walking Dead. It was fantastic, but they killed off a character and it really irritated me. And I understand that the character was actually killed in the graphic novel series too, and that's why it happened. But they didn't have to for the television show. So when they killed that character, I lost interest and I stopped watching it. But people still watch it. I've also bought the DVD for the what's the Fear of the Walking Dead. That's the spinoff, and I don't know how that is. I also got all these other zombie things. For some reason, zombies have been 15 years, 10, 15 years ago it was vampires. Now it's not. Oh, that's what I forgot. Oh, that's what I forgot. That's the show. Okay, so I've got to talk about that show. Let me see if I can find the graphic for it very quickly. And that is a show starring Alex O'Loughlin. And he was on the new Hawaii Five-O, for those who remember it. But this show was unbelievable. Let me see if I can get this up for you real quick. This show I absolutely loved. It did not get a chance. It was only on briefly, and I'm not sure what happened to it, why it was canceled, but it was one of those fantastic shows. And he plays a vampire, of course. Surprise, surprise, since I'm talking about vampires. But let me get this up for you here, and you'll see this in just a moment. And okay, so okay, give me a second here. All right, George A. Romeo movies. I don't know those. Okay, browse. What are those about? Here we go. All right, yeah, there we go. Alex Alock. Well, I got to shrink it down. That's way too big. Okay, you get rid of the New Amsterdam here and bring it over. This show was awesome. He plays a vampire in modern Los Angeles, and they're trying to keep a low profile. The vampires are, and he's got a friend who's a buddy who's wealthy. He's a financial trader. Of course, they've all lived for hundreds of years. He hasn't lived for hundreds of years, but he's been alive for decades after he was turned by his wife, who was a vampire. Really fantastic. The love interest for him is a newfangled reporter who works for something called Buzzwire or something like that, or BuzzFeed, whatever it is. Not the real one, but the one that's similar to it. And Moonlight is the program. It is amazing. I have that on DVD. I didn't have it here. I think I was watching it the other night. Really good show. His acting is superb. Her acting is superb. Her name is Sophie. Is it Sophie Evans or something like that? She was in one of the movies with gosh, what's the vampire series? The first one. I can't think of it with the English actress, but yeah, Moonlight, fantastic program, really good stuff. Um, Alex O'Loughlin, this was a great show, and it didn't last, unfortunately. Really, really a big shame. I think these are shows that died before their time. They should have been around longer. Why they weren't, I don't know. Really don't know what the answer on that is. But so the George A. Romeo movies, I'm not familiar with those. I really enjoyed the Killers class series. What are you guys watching? The Brave with Mike Vogel was a great show. NBC chose Seals over The Brave. Don't know this. Am I overseas when these programs are on? True Blood, yeah. No, True Blood's not the one I'm thinking of. No, that's not it. I'm talking about the movies. What is the name of those movies? It's a series of movies in which she plays a vampire and there's werewolves in it. And oh gosh, really attractive English actress. She's very talented. I'm drawing a blank right now. But no, not True Blood. Alex has a couple one-hit wonders like Three Rivers and Moonlight. Yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate, but he has a massive hit with Hawaii Five-O. I mean, that went on what for 11 years or something like that, or 12 years as the reboot. And since I was such a huge fan of his, I wanted to like Hawaii Five-O, the reboot, and I watched it religiously the first season, but then it just became a little too outlandish for me, and I lost interest. And I have the DVDs for several seasons, but I've never really watched them. I just couldn't get back into it, and it just recently concluded. The series just concluded a couple weeks ago. But yeah, he finally reached stardom with that. Now he again is another Australian actor, Robert Taylor. That's the guy from Longmire. George Romero was the bloke who starred all the zombies. Oh, okay, Night of the Living Dead. Okay, thank you. Okay, yep. Didn't know that's who it was. Yeah, True Blood was pretty good too, and that was a show I really was into for a few years. And that story starred was it Anna Paquin, the New Zealander, the Kiwi actress. She was in that. So that was pretty good, but that went on for 5 or 6 years too, and I kind of lost interest in it. Vampire Diaries is the same sort of thing. Really compelling show early on, but it seemed to lose its way after she became a vampire. I kind of lost interest in that. Yeah, it's some of these shows really walk a fine line with what they do. It's kind of like moonlighting. Once in Moonlighting, not Moonlight, but Moonlighting. Once Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd hooked up, it was like, this is not interesting anymore. But that show was brilliant when it started. But Moonlight, fantastic show. I had a list of these a few years back, and it was better than what I think assembled here tonight to talk to you guys about and share with you. But my list of the top 10 shows that didn't make it included Moonlight and Firefly, among others. Tonight I've had a few other shows in here that are kind of marginal from my perspective, but nonetheless interesting shows. So I hope you found them interesting. Anybody else got any other shows that they missed that really were interesting programs, or are there shows you're glad are canceled? You know, maybe that's a good question. Is there a show you'd like to see canceled? In the U.S., that show, The King of Queens, I really wanted to see that show disappear. Now, there's a show that I didn't give the time of day to, and I ignored it because I didn't like the actor and I didn't like the concept for it, and I just ignored it all the time. And that was that show with Charlie Sheen. What was that show where he had his brother and his son? I hated that show, and I wouldn't watch it. But then I started watching it years later, just before it was canceled. And actually, it's actually not a bad show. I don't know why I was biased against it, but I really did not like that show for a long time. Men, that's right. Two and a half men, is that what it was? Yeah, Two and a Half Men or something like that. Yeah, that show I just couldn't get into, and it turns out it's actually a pretty good program. After Charlie Sheen left the program is when I started watching it. Shows not gone before their time. Well, gosh, that would last forever, Nicholas. There's a lot of shows that have survived a long time. Give me some ideas of what you think some of those shows are. I mean, if I were to say shows not gone before their time, do you mean by okay, you mean shows that should have been canceled but weren't canceled? Well, that would be there's a couple of them right there. But then we also have play the Goldilocks thing here. We got the gone before their time, overstayed their welcome, and just the right amount of time. So for those gone before their time, that's what I'm talking about tonight. So they're too cold. They're not too warm. The shows that are too warm overstayed their time. I would say shows. There's quite a few shows like that, but the shows that hit just the right spot, like Friends. I think Friends went too long. Friends went too long. Friends should have ended 2 years before it did, and it would have been a brilliant program. It was a great program, and I remember, and it's just so funny. So I remember the episode we talked about Friends in which they're teaching the bet. They're playing poker. They're teaching the girls how to play poker, and so the game is over, and they've got to settle. Pay each other off. Take the chips and get what your money is. And so one of them says settle, or no, I think it's Ross says we have to settle now, and so without missing a beat, it was either Monica or Rachel. One of them says, settle what? And Chandler says, the Jamestown colony of Virginia. You see, the king has given us land. That was the peak. That, and then of course when they had the competition for Rachel and Monica's apartment. That is the best episode ever. And Ross plays the moderator. They ask the questions, and so they have to get the questions right, and it comes down to the last question, and then they say, what is Chandler Bing's job? Oh, I know this. I know this. He does this. He transpons things. He's a transponder. A transponder. And Monica, no, because they've lost the apartment. And she says, that's not even a word. Anyway, that's when Friends was an amazing show. Absolutely so funny. The Holiday Armadillo. Oh my God, so many funny things on Friends. But the last couple of years, I mean, Joey and Rachel hooking up. Come on, it's overstayed its welcome. It's time to retire the show. Now you're just milking it. Whereas a show like The Big Bang Theory, at the 12th season, those guys were on the top of their game. The writers, Bill Prady and his partner there, fantastic. The comedy was still spot on. The relationships are great, even though they married Sheldon and Amy, and of course Leonard and Penny got married. Unbelievable. Those things would never happen in real life for the most part. But even though that happened, it didn't detract from the show. It was fantastic. And The Big Bang Theory could have gone on longer. I mean, and I think it still would have had high ratings. But they went out on a high note after 12 seasons, and we got our fill. So that's not too cold, not too hot, just right. And I think that's what's happening. Yep. So Will and Grace, TV's Jurassic Park. Are you talking about the current Will and Grace or the original Will and Grace? That's the question. Yeah, I'm not sure which it is. The original Will and Grace was actually entertaining, and I enjoyed the show for the most part, despite the bizarre political views of Deborah Messing. That reminds me. That's another show that went before its time. Well, maybe to go before its time. What was that show with her? Her first show that she did. Um, Ned and Stacy. Ned and Stacy. Oh, Friends makes hundreds of millions of dollars annually in syndication. Friends makes a lot of money. It's one of the top syndicating shows of all time. Yeah, Deborah Messing did a show called Ned and Stacy, and it had Thomas Hayden Church in it, who famously was the mechanic in the sitcom Wings, and he's done many things since then. But he got his first show where he was the lead as a show called Ned and Stacy. He's an executive. Yeah, I'll get back to that in a second. He's an executive at a company, and they expect him to be married. Of course, he's a single guy carousing with women. He's not married. Stacy doesn't have an apartment. She needs a place to be. She's neurotic, of course, almost the same character that you find in Will and Grace, except younger, more attractive, and less annoying, and all of which was true. So Ned and Stacy was on for a couple of seasons, and that was an early Fox show, I think, as well. And so they get married, but they're not really, and they wind up falling in love, sort of thing. But Ned and Stacy was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. And then his partner on that show was a guy that wound up being on Ally McBeal later on. I can't think of the actor's name right now, but he was also very good. So Ned and Stacy, another show that was gone before its time. Yeah, Will and Grace, the first one was good until the final episode when the show ended. And of course, in her fabulously no tact, bad manner, ill-mannered, despicable political nonsense using the television show, which we enjoyed as a television show, and it was groundbreaking in so many ways, but to use it as a political platform to attack George Bush, and that was the end of that. So she had a show after that, and I just couldn't stomach it. The reboot of Will and Grace, no thanks. Will, the character Will, the actor, I think is a fantastic actor. He had a show which also died before its time. Travelers. I've forgotten other shows I should have talked about. Travelers. Travelers was fun. Who watched Travelers? Raise your hand. I can't see your hands because, of course, I can't see your hands. It's just me here. You guys are on the other end. So, anybody watch Travelers? You've got to watch Travelers. Travelers was fantastic. It got a couple of seasons. Did it get a third season? I think maybe. Really fantastic. It is another one of these dystopian things in which people from the future come back to the past and interact and try to change events in the past so that we don't end up in a destroyed world. We don't have a nuclear holocaust and all these other things that happen. And Travelers is fantastic. It's amazing. You gotta watch it. I'm not going to ruin Travelers for you. You've got to watch it. So let me look and see if I can find a screen capture of that so you guys get an idea of what I'm talking about with Travelers. It was an absolutely amazing show. Travelers TV show. There you go. All right. So yeah, hang on. Images here. Travelers was just an amazing, amazing show. Yep. There we go. All right. So unfortunately, it's gone. It's done, and it's no longer around, and that's unfortunate because it was a really good show. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was, but it ended without us knowing what the deal was. We don't know what happened on the show, and so it's very disappointing from that standpoint. And I wish that someone would bring it back, or at least finish it off for us so we know what the deal is. But it was a really, really good program. Are you leaving 1010? Or are you saying hello? Is that a hello or goodbye? I'm not sure which that is. Travelers. Okay, so let me get Travelers on here. It'll be just a second if I can get to it. Come on, where are you hiding at? Travelers. There it is. Yep. Okay, done. All right, so travel. Whoops. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain who just moved things around. There we go. There's Travelers. Unfortunately, it's tiny. I got to zoom it up. That's why I confused there. Yep. There you go. There's Will from Will and Grace. Eric McCormick, I think is the actor's name. Yeah. This was a fantastic show, and it is gone before its time, too. Each of these people is a traveler from the future. They come back, and they do this so that what happens is that they inhabit. Oh, I think you got a question, Tintin. Do you have a question? What's your question, Tintin? Tintin, as they say in French, Tintin. If you've got a question, please ask it. Um, or he's just giving us a high five because he likes something. So that's confusing. The emojis are not helping. So Nicholas says things raising hand. So yeah, so these guys are travelers from the future, a dystopian future in which the planet is in grave condition. We're in jeopardy of dying off as a species or dying from all the pollution and or whatever it is. It's never really clearly stated what the problems are, but it's bad. It's so bad that they've had to develop a way to travel back in time, kind of like the Terminator, except instead of destroying things to wipe out the human race, they're coming back to change history and affect events in the present. And so Eric McCormack plays an FBI agent. What happens is that they know when people die because there's a historical record of when people die, the moment a lot of people die or as close to the moment. So they're able to bring the consciousness of the person from the future back into the body of someone just before they die, or right after, right as they die. And so they take over the body of that person, and of course, it creates all kinds of things. And it's not quite Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where aliens are taking over human bodies, but people from the future, their consciousness gets downloaded into a person who was supposed to have been dead but now lives on. And of course, they make mistakes. Someone gives them the body of a guy who dies, but they don't know the reason he died is he was a heroin addict. So now you got one of these travelers who's addicted to heroin, and he wasn't addicted to heroin in the future. So it's really, really fascinating. Travelers was on for a few years. Really good stuff. If you look at the photograph there, the young lady standing with the dress on with her knee bed there, she plays a person who has mentally handicapped, and she has limited mental capacity, mentally retarded essentially, and she has a caregiver who helps take care of her. And then, of course, the person that comes in and takes over the body and the consciousness that gets into that body, they're alive. I mean, they're in the body, but they bring their consciousness into that body. That person is not mentally handicapped, but the physical structure of the person's brain was damaged, and so there's problems, and so it's fascinating stuff. Oh, that's oh yeah, okay, I'm the one. Yeah, I asked for who's watched Travelers. So what'd you think? Sorry, Tintin. What did you think of the show? Was it a good show from your perspective? Did you like Travelers? Oh, I got a smile there. Okay, yes, you must have liked it. I loved it. I really couldn't wait for it to come back on. Of course, one of the problems with television shows, it's in the age of streaming, in the age of alternative networks, is there's two things. If you're watching a serial show, you have to wait each week to watch the thing. So either you wait each week and be frustrated to watch it, or you DVR, you record everything, and then you watch them all at once. And so with the Blacklist, I'm kind of that way. I like the Blacklist, and so I kind of record it and then get to it when I get to it. Same with Bull, so I can watch several in a row. Or if you watch a show that's on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or something like that, you wait for it to come out. So you get the show to come out, and then you just binge watch it all. And so that's kind of how it was with Travelers. I would binge watch it, just like Bosch. I don't know who those of you who watch Bosch, the Michael Connelly detective series based in Los Angeles, starring Titus Welliver. And that show has now just had its sixth season. It just came out on the 24th of April, or not 24th, the 16th of April, something like that. So I watched the first episode, and I forced myself not to binge watch it, even though we're in the midst of the COVID-19 lockdown. I found other things to do, even though I really wanted to watch the program. The fifth season was good, but it wasn't, I thought, as good as previous seasons. So I was curious to see what would happen in the sixth season. And the sixth season was as good or better than the seasons in the past. That show has it. Brilliant program, Bosch. Really, really well done. Fantastic acting, great storylines, twists and turns, plot turns at every angle. Keeps you guessing most of the time. It really is a really, really, really good show. So Big Bang Theory is a show that ended in a sweet spot. Friends went too long. Firefly denied, went too short. And then I think that ultimately that Bosch will probably be one of those shows that goes as long as it needs to. I don't think they'll go too long, but I hope it lasts for several more years. I really enjoy Bosch. It's a fantastic show, one of my favorite programs on right now. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Good stuff. Nicholas is a binge watcher. Yeah, binge watching is great, but you got to keep having shows. There's a show that I didn't include in this list of programs, but I'll talk about anyway because it's still on. It's interesting, and not everybody likes it. And of course, you got to be willing to tolerate subtitles unless you speak Polish. And that's a show called Ultraviolet. No, not the movie starring what's her name, but the former model who did all those other zombie movies. But can't think of her name right now. But Mila Jovovich, no, it's not that one. Mila Jovovich was in a movie called Ultraviolet where she played a superhero from the comic book series. Not that Ultraviolet. This is a Polish series called Ultraviolet. And they're called Ultraviolet because they're amateur sleuths, amateur detectives who interfere with and or help the police. And it's fascinating stuff. Anyway, the show is in Polish. It's on Netflix. You can find it. It's called Ultraviolet. It's been on for 2 years, and I found myself binge watching it both times, especially the second season. Second season was really, really good. So yeah, binge watching. It's something we can do now. We didn't have that capacity years ago before DVDs, Blu-rays, or streaming services. Back in the day, you just had to stick that VHS tape in. Before VHS, you just had to wait each week for those shows to come out. So technology is our friend when it comes to this. But anyway, so that's some of the shows that I find interesting. So I guess maybe we need to do a follow-up, as was pointed out by Nicholas, I think it was that. So we've done the great shows that died before their time, and we've kind of touched on shows that went too long. But maybe another program to talk about, keep our minds off of the nonsense that we're all dealing with here around the world. But another program to talk about shows that that went too long, that we just saw too much. To me, I thought MASH was a show that went too long. A lot of people like that show, but the last few years of that show, I didn't find all that entertaining. But it still had high ratings. You know, if you have high ratings, people will keep watching it. Here's a show. Maybe we should do a shows saved by the fans, or shows brought back by networks that were canceled prematurely. So one of those shows is I was not a fan. I didn't watch it, but then wound up buying the DVDs and became a huge fan and started watching it and DVRing it in the current seasons. And that was Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. I was never a huge fan of his previous show, which was Big Home Improvement. It was entertaining, but and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, God, I love this show, but I enjoyed watching it. But Last Man Standing, I absolutely love that program. I know not just because he bashes Obama. That's not the reason I like it. But it was just really, really well done, and the show has matured and changed, and they've really adapted well. It was canceled by ABC and then picked up by Fox, and so now it's in its eighth season, I think it is. And so the last two seasons have been on Fox, and it's a really good program. I look forward to it every time it's on, and we'll DVR all of it. And I watched like two episodes last night from the last couple weeks that I had missed, but were DVR'd. Really good show. So it's nice when shows like that come back. I mentioned Firefly didn't come back; it came back as a movie, but Longmire did come back, and it got twice its original run. So that's kind of handy. I don't know about the rest of you all, but there's some programs that I really, really enjoy. Let's see, Loki and Key is quite good on Netflix. Displaced Family Inherits a Spooky Mansion. Okay. Oh, Lock and Key. You know, I started watching that, but it's such a politically correct show, and it beggars the imagination. Um, it was good, and I was glued to the first couple episodes, and then I kind of backed off at Lock and Key. I'm interested to try to get back to that program and watch it. I like the actors, the lead actors. I don't like the ones that play their kids. They're not. I don't think they're particularly good actors, and they're not very appealing. But the parents are really, really, really interesting. One of them is the one that was the wife was in the movie Serenity. She had a role in that, small role, but she's also the boss from the forensic show. What's that forensic show in which oh gosh, David Bonerantz plays the FBI agent, and Bones. Yeah, so the wife in that show, Lock and Key, was the boss from Bones, and she's a really good actress. Very very appealing, very attractive, very talented actress, and has good presence on screen. So yeah, Lock and Key looks like an interesting show. There's another one that I want to give a chance to. I was just thinking of, but I lost my spot on that. So yeah, but Lock and Key, I think that has a lot of potential. We'll see where it goes. Although, like I say, it's a little politically correct. I mean, the silly games they played at the parties where the kids were at, I just didn't buy into that. But it had an interesting premise where it was going with it. But I can't remember that show now. I've just lost it that I was thinking of. But maybe it'll come back to me sometime soon. We'll see. But anyway, yeah. So too soon, too long, and just right. So other programs are on right now. We talked about Supernatural. Oh yeah. So did anyone ever watch that show? What was it called? Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow. I thought that was brilliant and amazing, but I never do get through it. I went back and started rewatching the first season several times, and I haven't gotten through it. I don't know why I get distracted or something like that, but the first few episodes are just absolutely brilliant. The gentleman who plays Ichabod Crane is fantastic, and the woman who plays local cop, she's pretty darn good too, and it's a really good program. So Sleepy Hollow, obviously that's based on the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it's a modern day setting. It's really good stuff. I enjoy that. I like those shows that pay homage to history and bring history into it, whether it's time travel or it's just a reflection on places that have historical meaning. Castle Rock 2, based on Stephen King's characters. Each season is a different story, like America. Yeah, no, I've not seen that. I've heard about it, but the one it just came to me. The one I heard, I think Ronaldo Hose and a few others have recommended another show, and that, but I never watched, and that is what is it? Oh gosh, no, I've lost it again. It's in the in Arkansas or something like that. It's the name of it. I can't think of it. It's got Jason Bateman in it. I can't think of it. They play I don't know, drug dealers or something like that. A family out in Arkansas or something. Anyway, it'll come back to me. But yeah, Sleepy Hollow was a brilliant show, really well done. But I've never got through the whole thing, and I don't know why. That's interesting. Just I just get distracted. I'm not sure why. But I mean, I could have a show like that that I really enjoy, but then I can just sit down and watch Firefly over and over and over again. So I can just it's like the Big Bang Theory. I've watched every season of the Big Bang Theory 1,000 times. Usually I'm working, writing something, researching something, and I usually have it. Ozark, that's the one. Thank you, Nicholas. That's the program. Ozark. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, I've heard really good things about it, but I watched the little trailers on it, and I'm like, this really doesn't do it for me. Um, yeah, Jason Bateman is a really good actor. Aside from that goofy show he had that was mildly entertaining, and the networks kept trying to save it with this dysfunctional family. Aside from that show, he's had a pretty good career and done some interesting things. I think he's a good actor. But Ozark, maybe I'll get around to. I think Laura Linney's in that as well. I'm a Laura Linney fan, so I'll probably watch it just because of that eventually. But I haven't ever watched it. So anyway, so there you have it. But yeah, Sleepy Hollow, good stuff, good stuff. I like those shows. They're really appealing if they're well done. We mentioned Vampire Diaries briefly. I actually really enjoyed that. Nina Dubrov or whatever her name is. That was a good show for the first couple seasons. Then I kind of lost it. And there was a spinoff of that show called The Originals, and so it was vampires based in New Orleans. And I started watching that. I have a season of that, and it was very good. But again, I got distracted by something. Maybe I was traveling or doing a presentation or something like that, and I just didn't get back to it. And I haven't got back to it since then. So maybe I'll go back and watch the originals again, or start over with the Vampire Diaries. I'm not sure, but those are good shows. At least I enjoyed them for a bit anyway. Ozark, yeah, that is the one. It is interesting. There is some really good television programming, but when you see bad programming, it really stands out. It really jumps out at you. And when you see shows that just they linger on and keep going, like again, I don't understand how that show, The King of Queens, was on and why it lasted as long as it did. And there's a few other shows that are on these days that I just couldn't be bothered to watch. They're not appealing at all. The cast doesn't look interesting. The behavior of folks isn't particularly good. So I don't know what the deal is with some of these programs. But I'm glad that there's dramas and situational comedies are making a comeback on primetime television, because all of these reality shows, it's too much. All these different things. The Bachelor and Love Island in the UK, all these different things. What's the one where the greatest race, and then of course the granddaddy of them all, where they're all isolated in some place. I forget what that show is called. But those things just get to be too much. It's just over time you have your fill. It's time to move on. It really doesn't do anything for me. Those things, they can be interesting when they first start. Survivor, that's one thing on Survivor. I didn't watch Survivor when it first came out because I was like, ugh, this is like 1970s Battle of the Network Stars, silly stuff. But then they did Survivor Africa, and I was in Africa at the time. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. So I watched it, and it was okay. And I watched a few seasons after that, but that show got old too. It's if I want to watch people backstab each other, I can go to work. I can talk to family members if necessary. That's not really that interesting. Although people love it, the show still gets lots of ratings, so good on them. But maybe I should do a show about the things I just cannot stomach. Maybe we do a show, the Survivor 19 season. Yeah, but is it really 19 years? I mean, they did like two seasons in one season, right? Or something like that many times. There won't be the one who sees the last season. So the winner will be the one who sees the last season. That's good. Yeah, maybe we should do a program about shows that make you want to vomit. So at the top of that would be the Cardassians. And yes, I actually watched a few episodes of it. What an unbelievable waste of video footage. Unbelievable. Thankfully, we're not recording it. It's all digital now. But if we had to actually use film, what an incredible waste of resources. Yeah, shows like that just do not do it for me. Not interested. There's other shows I think that or follow politics if you want to see backstab. Yeah, well, there you go. Politics, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of backstabbing in politics. We see it each and every day. But there's other shows that come out. They really suck you in. They're really good, and then they're just Rescue Me with Dennis O'Leary. That was man, that show really when it came out was powerful. And then what's the gangster one? The one that what's his name? Who's passed away now? The actor. It was based in New Jersey, and I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a lot of blanks tonight, but that show was the mob show was really good for a few seasons. But I mean, they just kept killing everybody off, and at some point you're like, okay, well, they're just going to die. I'm not going to invest in this character. James Gandolfini, that show that he had. It just really. Uh, Stevie Van Zandt was in it. It really just got to be too much at some point and you lose interest in it. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Well, we managed to get over an hour here with the second stream. I still don't know why the first stream dropped, so I don't think I've adequately solved whatever the problem has been. Sopranos, thank you, Nicholas. Boy, you know all the shows. The Sopranos, that's right. Yep, that show. That was great for a while, but that's one of those shows I put in the category. It was past its sell by date. It just went on for too long. I didn't really. I just by the end I was like, is it over yet? No, hopefully it's over. Yeah, but some of these shows, again, Big Bang Theory, sweet spot, ended on a good note and an ending that I was satisfied with. Not one. Longmire getting to sixth season ended on a good note and it ended in a good fashion, but it also ended in a way that you could bring the show back later. So Longmire and Big Bang Theory, you could bring Big Bang Theory back, 10 years from now if you wanted, not with all the same characters, but with some of the same characters. You could bring Longmire back, and it could be focused on his daughter. She was set to be elected as a sheriff on that show at the end of it. And so you can jump forward 10 years, and Longmire's an old, grizzled guy who's retired, and maybe they consult him occasionally, but his daughter runs the show. And, she could be the sheriff, and it would be fascinating. It would really be good. So some of the shows can come back, and of course, as I've been trying to sell here, if I could get a network to buy into the idea, and if Josh Whedon was willing to do it again, we ought to bring back Firefly 20 years later. Captain Malcolm Reynolds. Yep. Summer Glau and a host of other characters would be fantastic to bring in there. Of course, we wouldn't see Alan Tudyk or Ron Glass. I've let the cat out of the bag. I mentioned Ron Glass, but Alan Tudyk was the other character that died in the movie. Um, or they could just ignore the movie and bring him back, but I don't think they're going to do that. Doesn't make much sense. But yeah, so that's another show that could come back. And that's a whole other show in itself. Shows that should come back. Reincarnate these television shows. And what are the merits for it and what are the merits behind it. But yeah, once again, let me run through some of these things before we wrap up here. Some of these things that I think went before their time. On the screen there, you see The Travelers. We talked about New Amsterdam, which very few people even know about. It's a shame, and it's hard to come by, at least for a program where you can buy the DVD or you can watch it on Netflix or Hulu or Prime, Amazon Prime. You can still see the shows, but ones you have to pay for or you can't get the DVD for, they're unlikely to get much traction. Firefly, Travelers, New Amsterdam, all shows that went before their time. Stacked, but they are classic programs and they are interesting programming to watch. So, well, folks, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes. For those of you in Southern Africa, I've got you past midnight, and I thank you for staying with me. Like I said, we managed to get through an hour and 15 minutes on the second stream, which is good. Really enjoyed it. This was something different to get our minds off of the politics of politics, but also the politics of public health with COVID-19, the Wuhan coronavirus. And so I hope that you've enjoyed the streaming. I'll say a show should have a planned beginning, middle, and end, leaving you wanting more. But final ending, no cutoff or cliffhangers. Yeah, cliffhanger sucks, and that's what happened to Dark Matter. Dark Matter just ended with a cliffhanger, and they dropped the show. That was a brilliant show, and Dark Matter won't be coming back, unfortunately. That's really a shame. Continuum. I started to say goodbye, but Continuum, I forgot about that. Continuum was a fantastic show. That's another time travel thing in which they're in the future and they travel back to the past and people are trying to affect events, but it has more to do with computers and technology in that fashion in the past. Really good show, Continuum. But that got 4 seasons, so it got somewhere. That show started really well. It carried pretty good most of the time, but it got a little confusing at times. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to get a chance to see if I'd fix the problem with my computer, assuming that's where the problem is. But it doesn't look like I did. Of course, if I hadn't got broken off, I would have had a false sense of security and thought that we had it good. But anyway, we've gotten through a second round here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed this discussion, and I appreciate those of you who tuned in. We had a handful of people stick with us through the end. I think it's been an interesting discussion. I hope you enjoyed it, and I thank you all for tuning in. So. Anybody have any final questions before we wrap up and close this down for the evening? Give people in Africa a chance to get some rest and for me to get some dinner because I haven't eaten today on a Saturday. Let's see. Nope, no questions coming through. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been a different sort of approach, and I'm sitting in a different spot and trying things very differently. And so, thank you all for tuning in. And I'll probably do a prepared video tomorrow on a topic of interest for Africa. That's the idea anyway. Nicholas says, no problem, nothing else to do. Oh, 1 a.m., slept late, watched so much natural history and such. I think we found the internet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is the time when we discover whether or not we can break the internet. so, so during COVID-19 lockdown, especially with so many hundreds of millions of people around the world being locked down, this is when we find out if we're actually able to break the internet. And I think the other night the Red Ants, now I said it now, I saved it for the end. I think the Red Ants found a way to break my internet stream the other night. You know what, 7 times we restarted for those who were faithful and stuck with it. Very frustrating. But tonight we've managed to get through this a second time with an hour and 16 minutes, so that's kind of cool. Maybe we can talk movies another time, but or we'll talk TV again. But anyway, it's fascinating. TV is such a big part of our lives, whether we admit it or not, and we get so many cultural references from it. It really is fascinating how TV affects and influences us. Anyway, well, thank you all for tuning in. I really enjoyed it. I'll, like I said, I'll try to do a video tomorrow that may be of interest to folks, either on Africa. I don't know if it'll be South Africa, be on Africa, one of the topics, talking about events for the future and things that need to be addressed, that sort of thing. And thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. For those folks in Southern Africa, have a good night. Really appreciate you tuning in, and thank you very much. Share the channel with your friends. As you can see, I won't be doing strictly things that are political or strictly things that are historical. I'll also have these occasional streams. This is really one of the stray voltage ones, but I want to give it a theme, so it's not really stray voltage. Anyway, so that's kind of what the idea was, and fortunately, we got through a fair amount of time, and I'm really happy about that. So. Anyway, with that, I'm going to thank you all for tuning in. I really do need to get something to eat. I'm getting a bit of a headache from not eating today. And you all have a pleasant evening in Africa, Europe, or here in the States. And thank you all for having a conversation with me about television. I really enjoyed it. Take care, folks. Have a good night.